In today's video, we'll be discussing the greatness of Kevin Durant, one of the most polarizing players in NBA history. People don't like Kevin Durant because of his move to Golden State, but that shouldn't discredit what he's done as an individual talent. And then what he did with Golden State was still phenomenal. You don't have to like that he joined the super team, but the fact that he's a back-to-back two times Finals MVP, going against one of the greatest players of all time, arguably the greatest in LeBron James, where some people say that LeBron outplayed him, but if you look at the numbers, and he might have a case for 2018, but 2017, KD played phenomenal. It's just undebatable that he just outplayed LeBron, and that's just a fact. So Kevin Durant, he started his career off in OKC, originally the Supersonics his first year, but after that they were OKC. Multiple conference finals runs, and a finals appearance, which very underrated in itself against how competitive the Western Conference was in the early 2010s. Wow. As you see how hard it is to play with Russell Westbrook, he made it work. And not just made it work where Paul George, where they got blown out in the first round by the Utah Jazz with a rookie Donovan Mitchell. But KD, he made it work somehow. And yes, that OKC team was probably more talented or just as talented as the one in 2019 and 2018. But the point is that the fact that KD was able to accomplish so much with a player like Russell Westbrook, and this isn't no slander to Westbrook, one of my 5 favorite players of all time, but he's not the easiest player to play with. So the fact that KD had the success that he had with him just shows how good he was and still how great he is to this day. KD won 4 scoring titles, which, playing with Russell Westbrook and James Harden coming off the bench, no easy task. But the fact that he did that, also impressive in itself. 4 scoring titles, and one of them averaging 32 on 50, 40, 90. 50, 40, 90. And then when Russell Westbrook was out for most of the season due to, I think it was a meniscus tear caused by Patrick Beverley. Patrick Beverley, of course. He averaged 32, 7, and 9. Those are MVP numbers, which he did win that year. Which he probably has one of the most forgotten MVPs of all time, which was phenomenal in itself. Just absurd, the numbers he put up and the efficiency. That's the one thing. We've seen tons of great scorers: Carmelo, Paul Pierce, Paul George, Michael Jordan, Kobe, Braun even. But it's the efficiency that sets KD apart. He when it comes to that, he's in a tier of his own. There was a game, I think it was a game last year where he had 28 points on 11 for 13 shooting. That's impossible. That's impossible. And for him to do that, just a level of greatness that very people don't like to talk about. Like to criticize him, say, oh, he's nothing without Curry, nothing about the Warriors. If you want to make that argument, the Warriors will only beat the Cavs the year before that due to injuries. Because a fully healthy Cavs team versus a fully healthy Golden State team, we seen what happened. They blew a 3-1 lead. So that argument in itself has flaws. So you can't just say that about how he wasn't nothing without them, because that's not true. Because even though, yes, KD against Golden State blew that 3-1 lead in 2016, he didn't play as bad as people try to make it seem. In Game 6, he had 41. He just had probably his efficiency went bad. And KD bad efficiency is pretty good efficiency for most other players. He wasn't the most efficient player, but he was still productive. It just took him a lot more shots than it usually would. And they did choke, but let's not make it seem like he choked to some Memphis Grizzlies team. No, he choked to the team that won the most games in NBA history. That right there, if you want to use that against him, which, yeah, you criticize him for it. He should have got past Golden State. He should have. There's no excuse for it. You have the team down 3-1. But things happen. But let's talk about what he did, which arguably one of his best playoff runs. It's probably one of the top 3 playoff runs that didn't end in a championship. The 2018 run by LeBron, and then maybe a James Harden or not Westbrook, but there's probably another one that I'm forgetting. But let's see how he basically took on the Milwaukee Bucks by himself. And then James Harden, as we know, got hurt in the first, literally like 10 seconds of that series in game one. And then Kyrie got hurt in, I think, game four? He got hurt in game four, I think. Game four or game three. And it just shows you that series went 7. And the Milwaukee Bucks have a big three of their own. Yeah, they're not as talented as the Nets' big three. But that big three was solid. They ended up winning the championship. So this wasn't no bum team. And KD forced a game 7. And I know everybody says he was inches away, but if his toe wasn't on the line, NBA history would be a lot different. And the fact that people say, oh, LeBron used to walk through the East. This isn't the same Eastern Conference, buddy. Like, it's not, you can't, that's not apples to oranges. Like, it was 2 different competitions. And there was never a team in the East that LeBron went against that won the championship. Never. Every team he went against in the East never won the chip. Maybe the Celtics in, 2008? He went against them and they won the chip, but he never went against the team that won the chip like KD did. So let's put that to bed. So, but KD basically, it was 1-on-5 out there. Yet that amazing game 5, where he had a 49, basically a 50-point triple-double. He had basically a 50-point triple-double on godly efficiency. Like, with Giannis was scared to guard him that series. I'm sorry, but Giannis, he didn't want to see KD that series. Like, one of the first possessions of the series, KD crosses him and then scores an and one. Like, that's what KD was doing basically the whole series. That team was literally built to beat the Nets. They have the defenders, they have the length pause. Like, that team was built to beat the Nets, and they didn't beat the Nets. The Nets beat themselves due to injuries. Joe Harris was a bum that series, but he's never been under the pressure that before KD and Kyrie and Harden went there, the Nets were a first-round exit team. They were underdogs. Remember that 2019 run? Such a fun team, but the expectations weren't there, so I can't really get upset at Joe for that, but still. We needed him. He wasn't there for us. That's the type of man he is. When you need him, he's not there for you. But Joe Harris has still been out. And then let's talk about this season. Before KD got injured, he was my favorite for MVP. I'm sorry. Like, he basically was the Nets offense. If KD didn't score, the Nets didn't score. If he didn't assist on the bucket, now he got help from Patty Mills. James Harden, 1 minute he was James Harden, the next minute he was Rodney Hood. Like, you never know which James Harden you were getting. So I don't want it. It was 2. Kyrie, of course, we know didn't want to take the vaccine, which I'm not going to get into that. You don't want to do that. Hey, man, that's you. But he didn't want to take the vaccine, so KD was left by himself, and he was leading the league in scoring, which he still could probably get a 5th scoring title if he comes back in time, because he's only off by like 1 or 2 points. So, and then it's just like the scrutiny that KD is just like people just try to make it seem like he's a homie hopper or a ring chaser. That's not what he did. Like, yeah, he had the right to leave OKC and free agency. Like, it's not his fault that he wanted to leave. The OKC put the ball in Westbrook's hands, which I'm saying Westbrook is not a bad player. I'll have to do a video about him, but he's not the easiest player to play with. KD was already in like year 10 or year 8 where he don't want to be one of the great players that didn't win a chip. I respect him for it. Now, he could have went to Boston or whatever other team was good. I don't know what other team was at a championship level that KD would want to go to. Or that if he would have came to it would have been a championship level. But he's seen the Warriors offense and how unselfish they played. He wanted to be a part of that. And that's fine. But KD is also one of the most selfless players of all time. You put KD in any system, I mean, he's gonna make it better. Like, he's not someone who's gonna ruin the flow of the offense. Like, no, Giannis, you just missed it. Oh my! But he's one of the easiest players to play with. Like, yeah, of course you're playing with a star level player, so your role is gonna diminish, as you can see with the Nets. His first year there, where Karis, like, you couldn't do that with other players like LeBron. Like, If you're playing with LeBron, you're turning to a catch and shoot player or a lob threat. Like you're not creating off the dribble no more. No, all of that is dead, and that's one of the things that separates the two. KD is a more easy player to play with. He's one of the most disrespected players of all time. You don't have to like how he did it, but when people question if he's top 20, that's absurd. I think to me he's top 15. If he wins another ring, two more, probably needs like two more. Of course, Finals MVPs. He wins this scoring title, he's top 10. And to me, it's like it's hard to rank players like Will Chamberlain and Bill Russell because like the era they played in. And then Will Chamberlain only has like two rings. Yes, he scored 100 points, but it's just like he only has two rings. So I mean, and his name then is in every record book, but still like. So KD, one of the most scrutinized players, but also one of the most underappreciated and all-time greats. So you don't have to like what he did, but you can't let it diminish your view on his talent.